Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Jared Hummel, the president of Parka. And yeah, we're just super excited and thankful that Candidly put this on and how much it's grown over the last 3 years. And then to be able to be part of this great event is super exciting for us. And so I'd like to start by just welcoming my guest, Jason Mathews, who's the president of Heitmeyer Consulting. And obviously, as the title illustrates, I think we got a fun little story and experience of how Heitmeyer was able to grow nearly 400% over the last 3 years without focusing on new client growth, which is obviously client experience is the focus of this summit. So thanks for joining me, Jason. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you thinking of us.
Yeah. Well, really, honestly, I want to tell Heitmeyer's story. Like that's our goal. Candidly really focuses on adding value to the industry. And I couldn't think of any better way to add value than to have Jason share. So I will try to talk as little as possible and let everyone hear the story. So just to start out, do you just want to tell us a little about you personally, Jason, your history in staffing, who you are, and kind of how this all came to be?
Yeah, no, again, I appreciate it, Jared. Thanks for thinking of us as being a part of this with you guys as well, and appreciate everybody that's joined. And hopefully, we can provide some insights. And I think, Jared, I was going to say, I think you've got someone in a virtual booth, right, that they can reach you guys through that forum to learn more about Parka. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, we were lucky enough to be one of the 4 or 5 sponsors of this, which means we have a booth. So Travis Webb, our VP of sales, is in that booth, but as questions come up for Jason or myself, funnel those through Travis, and we'll make sure that whether it's Heitmeyer or Parka related, that we get your questions answered. So
yeah. And anybody that's interested in connecting with me, obviously LinkedIn's a great place to do that. Again, so thanks everybody. Thanks, Jared, for having me on. Jason Mathews is my name. I'm the president of Heitmeyer Consulting. Back to your question, Jared, of my background. I'm from Virginia, grew up in a small town. I actually started out as doing technology work myself, and I worked as a consultant back in the day. And my transition to getting into the staffing and the consulting area, I knew I wanted to stay close to technology, but I wanted to be more involved in the people side of it and the relationship side of it and helping to solve problems for our customers. And I actually, as I mentioned, I was working for a large, multiple different staffing organizations as a contractor through different things that I was doing down in Richmond, Virginia. In one of those organizations, I got to become pretty good friends with my recruiter. And then I started asking him more about what he did. And he said, "You don't want to get into this industry, Jason. You don't want to try to talk me out of it." I later learned that he was just a great recruiter and he was trying to see my interest level, right? And kind of staying after him. But anyhow, so I ended up transitioning from working as an IT consultant and moving into what was a traditional kind of IT staffing organization at the time. And I spent almost 15 and a half years with that organization and saw some amazing growth. When I joined the organization, it was about $120 million company in revenue. I think we had like 12 locations at the time across the country. And when I left, the month that I left, they had just broken 2 billion organically over that time span. And I was lucky enough to be a part of, again, being there as long as I was, to hold multiple different leadership roles and move from Virginia to Columbus, Ohio, which is where I am now. But it was really interesting to see the growth and be a part of that at a lot of different levels, and to see the things that worked and the things that that we tried that didn't work. But it was a lot of fun. But that's my background in terms of getting into the industry. And again, I started back then recruiting, then getting into sales, and then getting into opening a market and as a sales leader, and then moved up through the ranks and managed a district for that company over the years.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So I know we're not talking direct dollars now, but just so everyone knows, like when we talk about 400% growth, like this isn't 1 to 5 million. Like this is a company that was mid-market, and in over 3 years, Jason has really helped grow 400%, obviously. But just talking to that, like based on your previous experience and then going to Heitmeyer 3 years ago, like what fundamentals did you see within Heitmeyer that you're like, okay, I saw how we went from 120 to 2 billion. What similarities, what differences, what did you look at that you're like, oh, this is where I want to make my next run?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I get that question a lot, right? Of why'd you move, right? What was the reason you made a move when you were successful where you were? And, that really does talk about the Heitmeyer brand and who we are as a company and what got me excited about the opportunity. So as I mentioned, my last company was an IT staffing organization that has successfully stood up a very successful IT consulting arm, but it's an IT focused organization in that staffing and consulting space. And when I met the folks, the founder of Heitmeyer and one of the other partners at Heitmeyer, so Heitmeyer, we are a bank focused. We started out as a bank focused consulting and strategic staffing organization. And now we're still financial services focused, but kind of think banking ecosystem and insurance ecosystem. And so that right out of the gates was of interest to me because of the focused nature of the business and talking with the folks here at Heitmeyer was a very different type of conversation in terms of how they approach their customers, how they partner with their customers, because it was less about, again, traditional staffing of we're trying to figure out what your hiring challenges are, what your hiring needs are. And this was much more focused. We understand the financial services vertical. We understand what customers are going through when they're trying to change payment platforms, when they're changing their core deposit platforms, when they're trying to reimagine their customer experiences when it comes to online banking or things along those lines. And so the approach and the depth of knowledge and the specificity in the financial services vertical was the first thing that really got me excited. Secondly, the business actually has been around for almost 24 years now. So the founder started the business in 1999. He left a large bank and started with the premise of I'm going to build a bank-focused consulting organization. And that's what he did and built a nice business for himself. It was a small business that he wasn't necessarily looking to scale at the time. And then another gentleman put an investor group together and joined forces with him actually 5 years ago this month, so January of 18. And in that period of time, from January of 18, when Pat joined with forces with Norm, they basically doubled the size of the business in a period of about 18 months. And they did that largely through their own connections. And I mean, God bless them, right? Like flying all over the country, getting MSAs signed, right? Like leveraging their connections to win deals, started delivering on projects. And so that was the second thing that really got me excited when I started talking with them was they were telling me about all of the existing MSAs and clients that they had. And then I started digging in about the rest of the organizations, how it was structured. And heck, before I even took the job, I was like, guys, you got to stop adding MSAs, right? You need no more clients right now, right? You need to slow down on that. So, but those are the things that really got me excited to begin with was the focused nature of the business, the depth of knowledge in the financial services space, and then the fact that you've got two really awesome partners, right, that were running the business day to day and that had really great relationships and a significant number of MSAs for the size of the business at that time.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I feel like there's a lot of companies that we work with too that it's like net new logo, and all of a sudden you like pull up your AR report or your client list and it's like 50,000 instead of like 10 that are millions, yeah. Right? Like, and so yeah, I think you were starting to go down the line, but I think giving people 10 minutes to get in here and get warmed up for the actual story of your journey at Heitmeyer and how you grew 400% around the context of this is about creating great client experiences. You mentioned a little like you had too many MSAs to work with. Like what? Tell us the story, the good, bad, the ugly, like what, how did it go?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, knock on wood, and it's been a great story, right? And part of why I say it all the time that I'm super excited that I made the move and I'm as bullish on our business today as I was then for sure. And I think for us, I mean, you mentioned it, right? And I think as we started working together, Jared, and we'll talk more about that later, but as you all were interviewing us, one of the things that you learned about us was that one of our passions and focuses is trying to deliver a great exceptional customer experience, right? And that I think ties in very well with obviously the theme of the summit overall. But that was really what we focused on. And the business had always done, I think, long before I got here, a great job of that. And it was about now taking that and scaling it, right? And so building the right teams, the right people, the right processes, making sure that sort of focus of delivering a great customer experience and our core values was important in who we hired, right, as we were building our team and building the culture of our business and how we want to continue to interact with our customers. Very partnership focused. It is, again, a very consultative approach to our customers where we're trying to understand what they're trying to solve, right? And then how we can help them out with that. But so I think that you think about the first thing that when we came in is really looked at building out an account management organization, right? So at first, the two partners were, again, they were business development, they were account management, they were doing all of that front office selling type part of it. And then we had some really senior recruiting team, which was awesome. And so I came in and spent my first couple of months just really observing, right? Like, because my thought process was, I mean, heck, we've doubled the business in the past 18 months before I got here. They're doing something right. I want to go figure out what are all those things we're already doing right, right? And that's where it just reinforced for me, again, the depth of knowledge that we have in the financial services space, again, a very partnership focused approach, that sort of thing. And it was like, all right, so how do we keep that same focus and build a sales organization, an account management organization around that can now scale that, right? So that's where I spent a lot of my time and focus at the beginning, was hiring account managers, building an onboarding program for salespeople, putting some processes in place that we feel really set ourselves apart in terms of how we approach our customers, how we work with our customers. And that was really the big focus for me starting out. And then obviously scaling the delivery team, the recruiting team, along with that, as we started getting account managers in there, saturating accounts and driving more opportunities. But those were the primary immediate focuses for me, was helping stand up that sales organization, helping paint the picture that already existed in our business about going and delivering a great customer experience, and making sure that the account management, the sales organization, was carrying on what the two partners that were doing all that to begin with had started with.
How can you talk a little bit? So, I mean, as a lot of businesses that have reached a certain scale, obviously the owner can't be the face of it for everything. But at the same time, I got to think, like, when I talk to a lot of staffing firms and they're hiring new AEs, like, their recipe is literally like, go cold call, like, go on a job board and call everyone. I'm assuming, based on what you just said, like, it was really a handoff from one of the owners to an AE to grow that account. So how do you say, like, your recipe, quote unquote, is different than maybe just like the go pound job board?
Yeah. I mean, back to your point of how we experienced the growth that we had, right? To grow to almost 100 million in revenue in a fairly short period of time really was that focus, right? We had existing MSAs. We had delivered some work at those accounts, and we had some really strong connections there. And that was what it was about, hey, here's an account that we've done work with, and here are a handful of folks that we know, right? Here's the Heitmeyer story. Here's the Heitmeyer solutions and services that we're really good at. Now go expand upon that, right? So it was really about, we had already landed, right? The old land and expand, right? We had already landed. We had an MSA or a PSA to do work. And then it was really, the account manager was really focused on taking that relationship or the handful of relationships we had, nurture those, and then turn them into going and growing their sales cycle, right?
Yeah. In your experience, how was it for the owners to kind of let go of those? Because as we talk, I don't know the exact demographic of who's on this call, but assuming you have a lot of people in that, like, call it 10 to 30 million stage, right? Like, these are relationships that they've fostered for 10 plus years, and they don't want to give them, like, what advice or what did you learn from the two owners about?
That's why I would say it worked so well, right? Because Norm and Pat were phenomenal at going, hey, we want to grow, right? Like, we understand the opportunity that we have in front of us. And I do hear that a lot, right? And I hear that from people that I know that come into an organization that's smaller, looking to grow. They bring in someone like myself, and then they really don't empower that person and then the subsequent people within the organization to be able to take it and grow so we can scale. And they did a phenomenal job with that, right? And I think that's why, this growth is really about we've got great ownership. We've been able to build a great team, and it's people working together, right? And so, obviously there are some relationships that we want them to keep or that they've maybe passed on to me that are CEO level or COO level or CIO level at some of the larger institutions we work with. But it was really about like, hey, we understand that we need to scale, right? And the only way to scale is to quote unquote give up some of those relationships, right? And pass them on to people that you believe in. So it worked well. And I've heard the stories opposite of that, where again, you've got someone that is an owner or a founder in a business that doesn't want to let go. And that usually makes it hard to grow.
Yeah, I found it, not only you, but several of our clients and several of our prospects, like, I don't mean this in a negative way to anyone, but there's so much changing in this industry right now, and like how it was done 30 years ago or whatever is not necessarily how it's done today. And taking someone like you that had worked at a enterprise level and inserting that, like you said, like if they can have the ability to kind of let go and take that bigger company experience, like, even our owner, Tony, is like, every dollar we earn from today forward is a dollar we've never made before because we're bigger than we've ever been. And so having the people that have been there and done that and bringing it to the small, mid-sized organizations I've seen it add a lot of value when it's done right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit, at Parka, we kind of talk about like the staffing continuum. I guess you'd call it like total talent or something in that vein of like, going from executive search to contingent search to direct sourcing to MSP to staffing to consulting to kind of that big four type thing. How I know you guys are really focused on being a consulting company, but you also do what we'd call more traditional staffing. How do you think that allowed you to land and expand? What differentiators?
We say it all the time I think we've all seen organizations that when they start doing consulting work or they want to do more consulting work, that they start to treat staffing like it's a bad word, right? And I think one of our owners lived through that in a previous life. And we say all the time, it's like, we feel like, again, with our focus on financial services, that we can go into a bank or payments company or an insurance company, and we can talk with them about, again, what their problem is they're trying to solve. And that's generally going to have opportunity across business, technology, and operations, right? So as you said, most of your kind of traditional firms are, I'm going to specialize as a technology firm. I'm going to specialize as an engineering firm. I'm going to specialize as a finance and accounting firm, but I'm going to try to do it across all industries. We kind of flip that paradigm on its head and say, we're only going to support the financial services industry, and we're going to support them across business, technology, and operations, right? And so we've really formalized our consulting practices. And as we go forward, right, and part of what we've talked to Parka about is getting that messaging out there. We've really formalized our consulting practices where we are competing with the PwCs and the EYs and the Deloittes and folks like that. But then we've also got our strategic staffing arm as well. And our goal is to go into a customer, and based upon what they have going on, it could be either or both, right? That could be a solution for them. And we're not going to turn somebody away when it's just like, well, right now I just need a resource that really understands lending systems, right? And really has deep subject matter expertise in consumer lending. We're not going to say, yeah, that's not us. We only want to focus on the bigger transformation in your lending space and helping you lead. And we think that, and what we're hearing from our customers, right, is a very warm reception. And it's like, hey, we're continuing to work with you on that overall lending transformation. And in the meantime, when you need someone just to augment your current team that has lending domain expertise, we can do that for you now in more of a staff aug capacity, right? And so that's our approach, and we don't plan to change that, right? Like, we're certainly getting a lot of good feedback of where those two things go hand in hand very often.
Yeah, because that's obviously you and I have talked, but I mean, Parka made a big transformation a year ago and really around the idea of adding business value. I think, 15 years ago when MSPs really came to fruition, it kind of commoditized the staffing market and it was hard to create differentiation. But as we kind of enter this new age of direct sourcing, is more focused on the end company choosing who they want to work with as a contractor, and then the competitiveness of the market, right? Like, I mean, pretty much every industry struggling to find talent. How influential, I guess, I don't know if that's the right word, but like, you guys are actually solving business problems for an industry versus just doing staff aug. How much do you think that's allowed you to land and expand versus just competing on the staff aug side?
I mean, again, I think it's a huge differentiator, right? And it also, you touched on in there, Jared, too, around talent, right? In terms of being able to have the right consultants in our network to be able to deliver on that. And again, I think it still goes hand in hand with our niche focus, right? That we have a lot of referrals. We've got a really strong referral network, and like any industry, right, it's very incestuous, right? So if someone's working at one bank today, you build a relationship with them, and they're probably going to work at 4 or 5 different banks over the next couple of decades, right? But it's the same thing from a talent perspective, that you become known. Hey, you all understand financial services, you all understand banking ecosystem, you understand the insurance ecosystem. The talent's interested in working with us because it's a different experience than working with a more traditional firm that's just working off of a job description, and you're going to send them to the customer and kind of see what happens, right? So since we're more ingrained in really trying to solve that business problem for a customer, we're able to attract better talent a lot of times that way, because we can really talk with them about, hey, you're focused and you've got domain expertise here, and we understand that. And we want to talk with you about the problem the customer has and how we're trying to solve it for them. Obviously, it's just a much different conversation that way.
Yeah, I was thinking of it on the client side, but it makes total sense on the candidate side too, that more and more polls that, like, even though we're moving towards more and more contingent labor, people still want value out of their work. And just being a number at a big company versus actually solving a business problem has to be way more rewarding for the candidates too. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, from the client side, Jared, as you said, I mean, we hear it from our customers all the time, right? Where it's like, I mean, any mid-sized to large company, right, that's hiring labor and services, right, generally will have a staff augmentation program, and then they're going to have relationships with the big 6 consulting organizations and or the actual vendors themselves, right? The platform vendors, Microsoft, Fiserv, FIS, right? Those types of Oracle, right? And we hear it all the time of, we're having trouble getting the execution that we need from just augmenting from generalized staffing, but we don't like the price tag we're paying up here, right? And we've got clients that are actively building programs to drive spend down from those consulting organizations to a company like us that fits kind of in between, right? Like, this isn't who we are, and this isn't who we're trying to be either. And we fit right in between, specifically for financial services industry, right? And so we're seeing companies that are building programs to actively drive spend to that tier, which is obviously helping try to push that forward.
Yeah, no, I think that's in all the conversations I've had with staffing leaders, like, I mean, obviously the big companies compete in the MSP, but the small to mid-size are having a harder and harder time. But then, like you said, sitting in that middle, like, I guess I call it like the SOW side of it, is like, you're competing a little bit against the big 4, but like, you can vertically integrate and do the consulting and the SOW work and the staff aug work. And that makes it a lot easier to land and expand than just going onesie twosie on filling seats, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, I told you at the beginning that we were going to get like 30 minutes in and I wasn't going to have more than 2 questions answered, but we'll evolve it a little bit. Of just one thing that I guess I didn't mention at the beginning in transparency was, like, you've only been working with us for about 3 months. Like, Parka did not have anything to do with Heitmeyer's growth, but in Q4, you strategically decided to bring on a marketing partner and chose Parka. So I guess start with, why did you decide to hire a marketing partner at the end of 2022?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was obviously at the beginning, we were just fast and furious focused. We knew where there were opportunities for us, again, building out an account management organization and continuing to do some things that we knew would help us have some hyper growth right out of the gates. And so we were focused really on those things. And then as we were continuing to grow through 2020 and through 2021, we did start to talk about, all right, like, our materials, our brand, our external facing brand it certainly isn't where we've grown to today, and what we want to be portraying to the marketplace. But we were still growing and investing in so many other areas as we were building out our consulting practices, et cetera, that we made the decision to kind of ignore marketing, right? And said, hey, no, we know that's a hole for us, but we've got other holes that we're gonna focus on filling. And then as we got about midway through 2020, we kind of said, all right, now's the time that if you look at our external brand, it's not doing us justice, right? And we need to fix that. And that really, for us, I mean, back to your point of, we've had a lot of growth. We still have an opportunity to grow fairly significantly in our existing accounts, and we have added a handful of accounts over the years. It just wasn't a strategic focus for us. That happened a lot more organically. And now, as we look at that next evolution, Jared, of how we're going to go from 100 million to 250 or 500 or wherever we want to go, right? That we know that we're going to be now engaging with customers. We're going to be engaging with consultants and folks that maybe that don't know our brand as well, right? And we've got to get our brand up to where, who we are today, right? And also looking forward to who we're going to be and who we're going to become, right? And so that was the reason that we went to market to try to find a partner, and ultimately, obviously, excited to work with you guys.
Yeah, it's the way I explained it over the COVID time was like, you would never send your salespeople out in a sweatshirt and sweatpants, right? Like, but the reality is, in today's world, people are looking at 5 to 7 pieces of content, whether it's your website, social, about you before connecting, whether that's a client or candidate. And so, yeah, I mean, just starting at that foundation of making sure that you look as appealing, quote unquote, digitally as we really know that Heitmeyer is internally and with their current clients. So we'll flip the script. I'll let you grill me now.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, again, I mean, it was, as we got recommendations from a couple of different folks. We actually talked to a firm, or more than one, that really didn't specialize in the consulting or staffing industry. And we kind of uncovered that wasn't the right path for us. But then we got recommendations for you all and some other folks that had a greater specialty supporting consulting and staffing businesses. And part of what really jumped out, Jared, to me when we first talked was that performance-based marketing approach. And I mean, frankly, we loved the fact that you were a CFO, right? And then that you were like, hey, we know what the heck are we spending marketing dollars on? And as a CFO, our business is built around taking marketing, showing an ROI on it. So, but I'm curious, like, if you talk about that performance-based marketing approach, and what does that mean to how's that going to benefit me as your customer and other potential folks out there?
Yeah. I think, like I always say, performance marketing is new to the staffing industry, but it's been around for 20 plus years in the other industries that exist. And so ours is really just, a year ago or a year and a half ago, we sat down and we said, like, we're growing like crazy, but we feel transactional. Like, we feel like it's a put the quarter in model of you get a website and 2 blogs and social. And I'm like, well, we literally started Parka because I was the CFO of a staffing firm that actually spent a lot of money on top of funnel marketing. And I went nuts because I'm like, we're spending $500,000 to just get these leads buried in our Bullhorn database, and we never use them. Like, why are we not taking that money we're spending top of funnel and then actually measuring, like, is that working? Is it working well? What is our ROI? Like, what could we be doing from a technology standpoint to augment human interaction and provide a better experience to candidates. Not like my head just started spinning as not being a staffing guy, being brought into it. And so that's why we consciously made the decision to build our team with performance marketing agency people to bring that to the staffing industry, because it is like you and I talked about before. I know that we were 2, 3, 4 times as expensive as some of the other bids you were getting, but with the idea that we would prove business outcomes, right? Like that we would sit down with you and say, like, we're working with an international travel nursing company right now. Like, they don't care about time to fill. Like, they're like a 6-year journey for their candidate where, you know, an MSP, you might have 24 hours, where with you guys, it might be 2 weeks. Like, if we don't know what we're driving to, how do we know that we're making an impact on your business, right? Like, anyone can build you a website, anyone can post on social. Like, you guys can go find that. Like, the people that want to accelerate their digital transformation curve, I think, is what the value that Parka brings to a firm like Heitmeyer.
Yeah. Well, I think, I know we're excited about as we get going, right? Obviously, not only leveraging you all to help upgrade our brand, right, from a sales marketing material, website, use cases, all of those kinds of tools and things, but also I think you touched on it there around digital transformation, and we've made investments in things like Herefish, which is now obviously Bullhorn Analytics, I think, right? Or no, that's Cube 19, but Bullhorn Automation, right? And staffing referrals and some of the other organizations like that. But I mean, you guys have experience in leveraging, taking those tools and creating actual campaigns to go engage with candidates, to engage with customers, to provide greater efficiencies. Is that's correct, right? That's part of when you talk about digital transformation, right?
Yeah, I think that's the part that this industry is still like kind of slowly grasping. Is brand strategy is one of our 3 solutions. Like, don't get me wrong, like having image in the marketplace that sides with who you are as a business is 100% important. But the whole idea of marketing operations is no one really knows what to do with Cube and Bullhorn Automation. It's like, well, our CIO runs it, or, oh, we hired this data guy. And the reality is, when you want to create great client and candidate experiences, you need good data, you need good technology, and you need good marketing. And that's what this industry has been struggling with. Like, I can't tell you on a weekly basis, like, I'll talk to one company and their admins doing their Herefish or Bullhorn Automation. I talk to the next company, their CFO is doing all their BI reporting. And then I talk to the next, and the market hasn't quite figured out yet that it's really marketing ops, which again is very common role in the world. It's just not seen in this industry. And like, we've talked a lot today about scalability. And if you don't have good data going in, like, you can't have good data going out, and you can't leverage tech at scale. If you just go buy a bunch of tech and don't know what you're using it for, we hear people all the time like, well, I have 100 workflows set up. Well, congratulations. Like, we had a client that had 100 workflows set up, and we found out that one of their candidates got 4,000 emails in 1 week from all their different brands. So it's like, that's what people, I think, the forward-thinking staffing firms are going to blend those 3 together to say, okay, like, now that we've created Heitmeyer's new website and collateral, how can we get that out to their entire database of clients and candidates strategically in order to scale without having to bring on infinite more people, right? Like, let them know what you're serving. It's not like, I feel like people get this like sketchy vibe with automation, and it's not. Like, automation should allow you to create a better experience, like a more white glove experience, because you're adding value to your clients and candidates at all time. And so that synergy of building, I guess we call it like omnichannel solutions that aren't just solving it, like not just a website, not just social, but how do you bring all of it together and then measure it, obviously. So
yeah, makes sense. Jared, I think we've got, timing wise here, I think we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I want to make sure.
You mean someone else has to go and I have to quit talking? No. Yeah. Again, we'll wrap it up. Like I said, thank you to Candidate.ly for having both Parka and Heitmeyer. It's incredibly cool what these people have done to build this over 3 and the scale that they've achieved. Just to kind of sum it up, hopefully you guys took a lot of great takeaways from from Jason and how Heitmeyer grew almost 400% in 3 years. I think sometimes we get stuck in the minutia of the day to day. And I think for me anyways, just hearing how your owners did things and how very selective you were on your vertical and your solutions and doing things in steps and not all at once. I feel like there's a lot of great takeaways from that. And then obviously at the end there, a couple questions about just how Parka is really situated uniquely to help with the not only marketing as the staffing industry knows it, but digital transformation into the future and some of the things that we're starting to do with Heitmeyer. And then we mentioned at the beginning, I know Travis Webb, our VP of sales, will be at the booth. And again, you don't have to go there just for Parka. If you have a question or something for Jason or want to get connected with him, Travis will be happy to forward that on. And then obviously connect with Jason and I on LinkedIn. Love personally to be a resource for this industry, however I best can. And obviously in the world we live in today, layoffs are happening throughout different industries. And if it wasn't apparent, Heitmeyer grew 400% in the last 3 years and they're not looking to settle down. So anyone on the call that has friends or acquaintances that might have been affected by layoffs or just looking for something new, again, reach out to Jason or anyone on the Heitmeyer team or anyone on the Parka side. We're happy to get you connected. Anything I missed, Jason?
No, I appreciate it, Jared. It was awesome. Thanks for thinking of us and glad to be a part of this today. So thank you.
Yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of the World Staffing Summit and hope to see some of you soon.
Thanks, guys.